I did like a little precursor where I ranted and raved and got on my soapbox and went through some of the classical myths that I picked up and some of the ones that I'd added. We're not going to go through them individually. If you want to hear Helen's take on it, listen to her Instagram. She covers most of them. My question that I would ask you, off the top of your head, I'm sure you've been exposed to all the different hypes and myths out there on AI. Which one's your favorite one? Which one still triggers you the most?
Oh, that's a great question. Well, I do think it's a myth that AI is going to or has to destroy all jobs. I do think that's a myth. Now, that doesn't mean that I don't think that myth is incredibly dangerous, because it's beyond a myth now. It's an actual business case. And so what sparked me to really get into the Instagram and TikTok Reels was to try and make this a much more nuanced and a discussion where people can see that it doesn't have to be this way.
Yeah.
That there are many, many different ways to provide AI to help people at work, to expand what we do, to create entirely new ways of working and being and of knowledge and of literally the human pursuit and the human condition, other than just automating our jobs. And this was a myth, a deep myth for a long time, because AI's technology has always created more jobs. But when it became a business case that dominated the narrative was a couple of years ago when one of the VC firms put out a slide that outlined the business case, which was, here's SaaS, and it was like a pie chart. Here's SaaS, it's this big of a bubble, and here's the labor market, the 13 trillion or whatever. And you're not going to make your money back on AI going after this. You're going to make your money on AI going after this. So the entire industry pivoted to focus on automating humans out of work as the return on investment for building AI. Now, that is a catastrophe. It is an absolute disaster. And anyone who doesn't see that, I just don't understand it. And there's so many reasons why it's such a bad idea, not least of which the economy. I don't buy the sort of runaway post-scarcity argument, and I can talk a little bit about that, but that would probably take the rest of the time we have. The important thing about it is that bringing in these components that we understand from the past that have held true for a few hundred years about the way economies work, the way jobs work, the way they change, the way technology changes jobs, that nuanced discussion needed to be put in so that people got some handholds for how to understand this. But the other thing is just sort of the big idea, which is this is not the same intelligence as us. It's just not. And it's another kind of intelligence. So what happens when you have another kind of intelligence that enables you to reach for a different place? Well, everyone gets better. So the human, what we can do now as humans, the radar charts that look like we're being hunted down as that one. Imagine that circle being like this. No one talks about that. I mean, people talk about it in hand-wavy terms like, oh, we're going to cure cancer and we're going to do whatever. But what we're really talking about is what else is on this chart that we can do? And some stuff is really mundane. Like maybe we can, there are many, many problems we can solve that we don't even think are problems yet.
I think you kind of alluded to it in the beginning of the podcast. I think we are victims of our own paradigm of scarcity in the sense that we've become comfortable with what's possible, right? And I find it funny when somebody says, AI is going to replace lawyers, which is an issue for me because my son is studying business law. And he smiles when I tell him this. But if you think about how few people actually get access to a lawyer or get their rights stood up for, this is what we're covering in law right now when we should be covering this. If you look at medical application, I think even if you have good social medicine, in Austria, you sometimes have to wait 3 months before you get an appointment with a specialist. Okay. So I also agree with you. I believe that what we should be focusing on, and we should be stressing it, in fact, is we're looking for, exponential augmentation of capabilities versus the replacement theory. I think that's really a bad way of thinking. And I agree with you. The self-fulfilling prophecy of believing that myth is a dangerous one.
And it smuggles in, I mean, both of them are the same myths in a way, because the post-scarcity argument is one where there's some sort of bright line that exists between what humans do now that suddenly, machines are just going to take care of all of that.
Yeah,
and you listen to people in that who are in that world, and they justify it with the idea of, one, the technological miracle of machines, but they also justify it by saying, well, most people on the planet hate their jobs. And that smuggles in a very big assumption, which is, why don't we have better jobs? And they're basically the same, because they essentially say that leaves humans to do something human-y, What are you going to, if you want to go sit on the beach, you go sit on the beach. Working will be optional. These are absurd ideas.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with you. The concept of what is it, basic wage or something that's given to people. You know what? It's the same people who are nihilistic who are pitching that idea. I'm like, you won't bat an eye if you fire 30,000 people. I don't know who I'm talking about, right? But you're going to say, hey, there should be a basic general wage for everybody. That's not going to happen. So I agree with you. I think that's some mind games that are being played there.
There's a wonderful, when it comes to sort of thinking about whether, this, because if you Google how many people on earth hate their jobs, you'll get back a Gallup poll or something that says 85% of people are not engaged at work. And it's like, well, that's not the same question for a start.
Yeah.
That swapped an easy question for a hard question, as Danny Kahneman would have said. A hard question for an easy question, as he would have said.